Welcome to LimaCharlie. My name's Chris Luft, and I'm just here to do some housekeeping before I pass things on to the presenter. I want to thank everybody for joining us today. I know your schedules are probably incredibly busy, and there's a lot of people competing for your attention, so we really appreciate you taking the time to join us today. In today's session, we're going to be talking about how LimaCharlie can be used to monitor GitHub audit logs and a few other things about how it can be applied to SecDevOps. I also want to mention that LimaCharlie has an unrestricted free tier of 2 sensors. Everything is free to use on the free tier with the exception of the VPN, and that is just to keep people from using it to stream Netflix. What can I say? Bandwidth's really expensive. So once you get set up on the free tier, I encourage you to join our community Slack channel, slack.limacharlie.io. We're just at about 600 people on there. It's very active, and our engineers are available at all times to answer your questions and help you get your deployment going. We're even able to set up private channels with people that are concerned about talking in public. If you have any questions during the webinar, you can put them in the chat. We will try and answer them in real time and cover anything we missed at the end of the webinar. And with that, it is now my honor to introduce my friend and colleague, Maxime Lamothe-Brassard, founder and CEO of LimaCharlie. Maxime started his cybersecurity career directly out of university when he went to work for the Canadian Security Establishment, or CSE, which is basically Canada's version of the NSA in America. He worked in signals intelligence and built tools for the government. After that, he was employee number 100 at CrowdStrike, spent some time with Google at their main campus before finding his way into Google X and onto the founding team of Chronicle Security. In 2018, he left Chronicle to bootstrap LimaCharlie, and since then, he has been the main architect and visionary for the work that we're doing at LimaCharlie. And with that, I'll hand it over to Max.
Thanks, Chris. Hello. So today we're going to be talking about SecDevOps, the ability to use more particularly GitHub around detection, the kind of the security concerns with that, and how LimaCharlie kind of plugs into that problem set, and what we can do about it with LimaCharlie. So to begin with the big picture, just very briefly, LimaCharlie, if you're new. So LimaCharlie is a platform that is built like AWS, meaning everything we do is scale up, scale down, self-serve, multi-tenant, build per usage per month, OEM friendly. So that means you can build products on top of it. And the thing that we offer, the products that are on LimaCharlie, are cybersecurity primitives. So what that means is we are not doing, the boxed product that, is point and click for somebody right out of college, but rather we really focus on cybersecurity professionals. You want to have, for example, access to an EDR and have full access to that EDR to be able to use it as an API and plug it into everything that you have and automate things around it or build products and solutions. You can do that with LimaCharlie. I call out EDR, but you'll see there's a whole lot more. It's constantly expanding. And in particular today, it's when we're talking around GitHub, it's our ability to bring data from GitHub within LimaCharlie. And it's not really just GitHub, but we can pretty much ingest anything from anywhere. So that's kind of the super high level version for LimaCharlie. So more precisely for here, what we're kind of talking about is what we're talking around is the ability to we already bring into LimaCharlie things like 1Password, right? I think most enterprises have gotten to the idea that IAM is an attack surface. And so I'll be briefly kind of showing you what that looks like, but the ability to do things around, for example, 1Password or Duo or Okta or whatever it is, around those logs and being able to detect and alert from those on specific situations. And I think where we're moving now is more and more people are becoming aware of that same type of security surface through CI/CD pipelines. So if any company that does have either DevOps or uses software or builds software or deploys software in an automated fashion. For example, if you're leveraging things like GitHub Enterprise, that's becoming more and more of a concern. And so with LimaCharlie, you'll have the ability to go and very specifically describe situations that you would like to alert from that, and how that can be the beginning of an automation, on how you respond to it. So let's get right into it. And this is very much going to be a live demo. So I will just join from a different box, and I will share a window with LimaCharlie. There we go. So here we have a my LimaCharlie dashboard. I have a bunch of different organizations. What I will do in a different window, just to drive the point home, is let's create an organization for this demo. So GitHub webinar, and I will trigger the creation of it just from a different user. That's why I'm in a different window. And while this is creating, I can kind of go over a little bit the steps of the agenda, what we'll be looking at. So we're creating an organization. So that's a tenant in LimaCharlie land. And then what we're going to be doing is we're going to be plugging in GitHub. You'll see what that looks like through, we'll use credentials that we have through GitHub Enterprise and the audit log streaming. After that, we'll look quickly at what the data looks like as it comes into LimaCharlie. And then finally, not finally, but we'll build some rules, some detection rules around this data and show what that looks like. And then we will trigger an alert, show what that looks like. And then finally, we'll close on what are the secondary steps that you could be taking with LimaCharlie. So, I mentioned LC, it's like a Lego blocks, right? It's really this AWS approach, which means we're not telling you, hey, this is the one way that, you can do things and build things in LimaCharlie, but rather we're making those primitives available to you so that you can mix them and mix and match and pipe them into different things, different systems, and go from there. So I'll kind of give a quick survey of what those things are. So I have created this organization. I'll just add my other user here to this org. So I created a tenant. It takes just a couple of seconds to create the tenant in LimaCharlie. So it's really, really straightforward. Just do a quick refresh and we will get right into it. Here we are, GitHub webinar. Let's jump into it. Oh, I need to give myself all of the permissions. Of course. Here we go. So we are granting permissions. Just wait a second or two, refresh. Perfect. So the first thing that I will do is I will get this tenant out of free tier. So this is just for simplicity. So we have a free tier in LimaCharlie that gives you 2 EDR sensors for free, but also you can still do things like bring, GitHub audit logs or whatever other logs that are supported. It's a wide open free tier, but there's a limit of 10 kilobytes per second from those sensors. So I just want to make sure we don't hit that. So I'll just manually go and upgrade ourselves just out of the free tier. Here we go. That's done. So let's do it. Let's add a sensor. So in our case, we are looking at cloud. Very briefly, you can see we have a lot of different sensor types. Won't go into all of it, but the idea is LimaCharlie pretty much takes anything from anywhere, including other EDRs. So you could plug in Carbon Black and stuff like that in LimaCharlie. So let's select GitHub. And so, we need to create our first installation key. So I'm just going to call it, cloud providers, and put a cloud tag with it. that this is what we'll use to deploy. We will use Google Cloud Storage. The adapter name will be, let's say, GitHub. So I will be copying some a bucket name, and yeah, so put a bucket name and then some credentials. So I'll just reduce this to the max so nobody knows anything. Here we go. Complete cloud installation. There we go. So I have just gone and created the adapter. So what's happening right now is that in the LimaCharlie cloud, we're setting up the pipeline so that we can start ingesting directly from that bucket into LimaCharlie the various audit logs. So we're just waiting. We could wait here just for the first sensor to show up. I'll just go directly into the first in the list here. So we can see that we've got some initial logs that are starting to come in, and it's probably going to be expanding over time. So by default, our GitHub support, what we do is that we take all of the users, all of the, I think they called it actors, in GitHub, and we create each one under its own sensor. What that means is that the concept of a sensor in LimaCharlie is where it would be an EDR, for example, or a browser or something like that. So by having each individual user in their own sensors, we just make it really easy for you to formulate your detection rules, not at the level of, hey, I'm dealing with a big pipe of logs coming in, but rather at a level where you're inherently saying, hey, I want this to happen on a per user basis in GitHub, because that's often kind of the level of granularity. Obviously, all of this is completely customizable, would be very, very easy. So I will just trigger a little bit more activity. So that we have more sensors showing up. Here we go. So we've got a bunch of stuff, more stuff coming in. So this is good. Perfect. Let's, next step for us would be then to, we've created the adapter. Let's look at the data, see what it looks like. So I can go into my own user, look at the timeline. So the timeline, if you have used LimaCharlie in the past, you'll know that if you have an EDR, for example, that's where your data would be coming in. In fact, maybe I can show very briefly an EDR, what that looks like. So a bit more verbose. So here is data from an EDR. So you can see, it's all kind of the EDR type data. But then if I switch back here, it's a little bit boring right now. Hopefully within a minute or something, more logs will come in. But you can see that these are the event logs coming in from, or the audit logs coming in from GitHub. We do very, very minimal changes, if ever, into audit logs coming into LimaCharlie, except if it's EDR. So if you're bringing in EDR data, we'll encapsulate and normalize. But for things like GitHub, it's really, they generate JSON. It's JSON that you get in, which means it's very easy to start creating rules even across different platforms. Maybe you have some rules that are coming from, a Splunk instance or something like that. And you can see the data that is in here. So that is pretty straightforward. Our data is flowing in. That's great. So the next step is let's start looking at what are some of the things that are possible here. So to do that, we will go and look at our template repo. So we will make that link available, but we have a repo that is public where we put a lot of templates, which is LimaCharlie supports a infrastructure as code configuration format. That really makes it easy to create, different tenants, replicate their their configuration. So operating at scale, very easy. But we've created here a file, github.yaml under solutions, that puts forward a couple different sets of rules. So we can look briefly at them together. What they do, I'll kind of describe it a little bit. Then we'll go and we'll apply them. And then we will trigger one and go and see what that looks like. So what rules do we have here? So I think we've got 4 different rules that, they're essentially examples of how you might want to leverage this. So I will zoom in a little bit more. There we go. So the first one is, as you can see for the description, we are saying we're giving a geofence essentially around people that are doing clones or pushes of private repos. We can do that pretty easily because GitHub will populate a part of their JSON under actor location and a country code. So that makes it super convenient to go and start to put some rules. So in this case, the rule that we're saying is the detect part says, I want to detect the following thing. We are saying the events that we're interested in are git clone and git push. And we want all of the following, subcomponents of this rule to be true for this detection to occur. So first one is that we want the platform to be GitHub. So we can have a ton of different sensors, as mentioned. So in this case, we're really saying, like, hey, this doesn't apply to one password. This applies to GitHub. We are saying that the repository public, which is a field, again, in the data from GitHub, we can see it here, should be false. So the value is false. And then finally, we are saying that one of the 2 rules below should be true. And then we invert that resolution. So we are saying, here's the rule. So the actor location country code is US, or the same country code is CA. So, it's Canadian or American. That would resolve as positive, and then we are inverting it. So we're saying if it's not the case, then we want that detection to generate. On the respond part, this is the most generic kind of response part that we could put. This is the list of action that will be taken when that thing is detected. So in this case, we're just specifying a single action, which is report. And the name of the report is private git out of country. The report in LimaCharlie as an action means to generate an alert. Where that alert goes, that will be entirely up to you. Again, we are not sort of platform that says like, oh, all alerts, come out in a single list for people to triage. Lots of people build automation and stuff like that. So we make it very easy for you to customize where and when alerts go. So I'll go a little bit more quickly over the next other rules. Now that I kind of went a little bit over the high level. So this next rule will detect git clones and pushes made outside of daytime hours, loosely defined, either on the West or East Coast of North America. So again, it's kind of like the time version of our geofencing from before. So you can see very similar. We're looking at git clone and push again. Again, we're saying it's for the GitHub platform. We are looking at private repos. And we are here putting in a small curveball, which is saying, look, we've got cloud build runs. So Google Cloud Build runs that run all the time. That's a CI/CD pipeline in cloud build. Obviously, if those end up making a pull or a clone or a push, we don't want to generate an alert off hours. It's expected. So we're saying, look, if it's not that value, so we want to exclude that bit. And then we use the times directive here as part of a rule. So we're saying, like, this is the rule. These are the conditions based on the event. And then the times allows you to specify a list of times where you would want this detection to be true. So we are saying, there's a lot of customization on that. It's all on doc.limacharlie.io. But like the simple version is that we're saying any day of the week. So, day 1 through 7, between 6 a.m. Wait, is it? Yes, that's right. Between 6 a.m. and 7 p.m. on this time zone. So the West Coast time zone. Or Monday through Friday, again, same times, just a different time zone. So so we are defining those, and we're saying if this happens outside of those times, then we want to generate a detection. Respond, same component. Again, the next rule is we're saying we want to generate an alert anytime a protected branch policy is being overridden. You may or may not know what that means exactly, but in GitHub, there's a way you can, require a 2-key approval, for example, for pull requests. And sometimes some administrators or some entities have the ability to go and override that. So that's great. GitHub emits an event very specifically for that. So this is what we're detecting. You can see it's a much simpler detection because we are saying, the platform is GitHub and the event is this. That is all we care about. We don't really care about the content of which repo or anything like that. This rule is just any policy being overridden. Finally, we get a little bit into sort of the UEBA kind of realm a little bit. And so this is a rule that says, look, if a user clones over 5 private repos over a period of 60 seconds, we want to generate an alert. So that's obviously, a simplification of the concept that, maybe an internal attacker or an external attacker gaining internal access to some creds might come in and want to clone a whole, all of your repos, all of your private repos and GitHub to be able to get access to it. So this rule will say, if more than 5 repos in 60 seconds get cloned by that one person, by that one entity, we will generate an alert. So these are kind of, initial quick rules that we've put forward. So here's what I'll do. I will just take the raw version of this. So there's a plain text. We'll come back here and we will go into our templates and we will just say, okay, we want to apply this template. Just paste it, apply. This is telling us, hey, I'm going to be creating the following rules. Perfect, exactly as expected. Go for it. Here we go. It's been applied. So now if I go and look at my rules, I can see my rules are there. This is great. I could come in, I could do some customization. Specifically, for example, we mentioned the out of country thing. Maybe you only have people in the US, so you could remove that. And that's going to make a good example. That's our next step is let's try to get one of those to trigger. So I have removed the Canada side of things. So I'm going to save that rule. What am I missing? Oh, yes. This is telling us like, hey, you are ORing just a single rule. This doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. So I will just refactor this rule a little bit to just be the rule itself. So if it's not the US, it should be good. I think it's good. Devil's always in the details, but this looks good. So we've saved this rule. Within a couple of seconds, it will be applied. So if I look at this timeline here, still not a whole lot. So let's try to trigger one of those. And here is what I will do. So in a different window, I will make a commit. Here we go. We've pushed that commit. So now in this case, there might be some delay between when GitHub, on their side generates the audit log. On the LimaCharlie side, everything from all sensors at all times works in real time. So that means it will be very, very quick. Now, I don't know exactly. We'll see how long it takes, but GitHub might be generating their audit logs, like with a couple minutes delay. It entirely depends on the platform. So yeah, let's just take a quick look and wait for it. All right, so the event has come through. You can see that we have the expected event. We've done a push to a private repo. It is from Canada, where I am currently in Vancouver. Let's look at the detections. In this case, if we were sitting on the detection screen, we would see that detection come in real time, but we were not there at the exact moment. So there might be a brief delay for it to make it to storage. So we'll just wait for a second. But again, all of this happens in real time. So this is only sort of for us to see it in the browser in real time. If you had a webhook or something like that piped in at the end, you would get it right away, very quickly. While we just wait for a minute, what I can show you is the outputs. So I mentioned LimaCharlie allows you to do whatever you'd like with that detection. So you will see that detection, coming in. It will highlight the event that generated this, the detection name, all that good stuff. And there's sort of two big categories of things that you could do from there. So the first one is you could send that detection on to something else. That something else is very dependent on what you'd like. So I could say, all my detections go to Splunk, or you could say from the wide net of all detections go to place X, all the way to only detections of this type go to this place, all the way down to here's a detection rule that describes when a specific event should make it into an output. So if I show you what that looks like, an output can be any of those methodologies. So that means I could send it to an S3 bucket. I could also send it to Slack. Sometimes people send specific alerts via SMTP, so via email, to ticketing systems. Or something like Tines or Torque to do low-code automation. Or at the end of the day, even webhook, general webhook, which means you can very easily create a Lambda or a cloud function or whatever it is, and kind of do what you'd like to do from there. So people will often do things like pipe things into ticketing systems, or send it to a SIM, or treat certain alert types in different ways. So if I just picked S3, I could just come in here and just give like my key ID, my bucket, a couple of basic things. I could apply some transforms, hit save, and in a couple seconds later, those events would start flowing. So that is the outputs. If you want to see a little bit what a lot of outputs would look like, I go to our demo instance here into outputs. You can see we have a lot of different types of examples of output. So we're sending audit logs via SMTP to a specific address. We're populating Google BigQuery, Google Cloud Storage, several webhooks, going to different platforms, right? So we're using webhooks to go to Tines, and we're also sending bulk webhooks, so with a lot of data to go to places like logs.io. to use as a SIM, for example. So that is the outputs. I will close this. The other thing that you could do is using services. So LimaCharlie has a concept of LimaCharlie Services, which you can find at LC Service. So it's all in public. It's all publicly available. So you can build this either in Python or in Golang. And the idea is that it's a very thin framework that we provide so that you can just add various accessors to the class or to the objects in whatever language, and plug into the LimaCharlie lifecycle very easily. So it allows you to create a service, for example, that will say anytime a specific detection occurs that you get code execution, or anytime a deployment event. So maybe anytime a new sensor enrolls, maybe you're using EDR, and anytime a new EDR enrolls into your tenant, you want to go and create a ticket for help desk to go and make sure that their computer is set up properly. So you could do all of this in a LimaCharlie service. It just streamlines everything from credentials management across multiple tenants, so that this service doesn't just work for one tenant, but can scale to any number of your tenants. So it's very, very powerful system. And yeah, that is pretty much it. Why hasn't that detection come in? It must be something silly that I've done. Let's take a look at our role. The path to these is event, because we could also be referring to the routing within a specific rule. There we go. All right, let's try this again. That is what happens when you don't test. So we have a replay service that allows you to test your role directly in an event and validate that it's working. So clearly I did not do that here. All right, let's do another push. This should be good this time. So we will just wait for a moment. There we go. Here's our detection. So we have our detection source, Maxime LB. So my user, here we go. And I could expand that, see all of the details. So as you set up forwarding, for example, of your detection somewhere else, this is what you'll get, this JSON. And I'm also able to just go and jump at that point in the timeline and see exactly what was happening. Cool. Thank you for bearing with me for a minute. So we've got all of this. We've talked a little bit about how you can send those alerts other places. So I guess my closing remark would be that we specifically build LimaCharlie to be a Lego block set. And so what that means is that we are, we don't know every time exactly what people will build on LimaCharlie. So we're always super curious. If you have some ideas, do share. We have slack.limacharlie.io, our Slack community that you can go and join and ask questions. Always super happy to see what people build, the types of rules that is of interest to them. So yeah, just go experiment, and Hope you like it. Thank you.
And that's a wrap. Thanks again to everybody for joining us today. I hope you're as excited about what we're doing here at LimaCharlie as we are. If you're a technologist, I'm sure you can see that this is the way forward, and I hope you will join us in transforming the industry and making this kind of approach the norm, regardless which vendor it is. Everybody is going to benefit if this is the way business is done. And just another reminder that we're on social media on LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube at LimaCharlieIO. Go follow, say hi, smash that like button. We love to get connected to our users and, have some real talk about ways we can make this whole thing better. Um, I think that's it. So happy hunting.